Today's unreasonable human had humble beginnings as a bedroom DJ playing a sound that wasn't mainstream. He stayed true to the sound, and bit by bit he built a stellar career as the host of one of South Africa's top electronic music shows, Selective Styles, founder of the house record label Stay True Sounds, and most recently as the Director of A&R for the iconic UK-based record label Defected Records. His name is Kid Fonque. Hi, Al.
Hello, Erica.
Hello. Alan, or Kid Fonque, as you're more professionally known. Alan and I go way back, and I'm going to make sure that I don't get too excited on the call. So I'm going to keep my voice stable. I'm going to try my best. But Al, I mean, we've done this before. We recorded this show a few months ago, actually, and the sound was shit. So we're re-recording, and I think that it's a good idea because I think it was such a great conversation, and I wanted to really make sure the quality was as good as possible so that people can hear your story, because it's so rad, because you have a very unreasonable story in such a great way. And I think many people can relate to where you've come from, and I'm sure would love to know how you got there and just know more about you. So welcome to the show, Mr. Kid Fonque.
Thank you very much. Good to be back. Yeah, I suppose you said, you and I have got a long history. I think you've seen more than most. You've really seen my journey. I'm still on it. I don't really feel like it's complete or it's going to be ending anytime soon. But yeah, it's been, I mean, for lack of better words, it's been fucking mad. This has really been an insane journey. Yeah.
Yeah. And, well, I don't know if many people know your journey, Al. I'd love to know. I'd love us to start from where I just love humble beginnings, because I feel like that is when people have humble beginnings, when they get to where they are now, like with you being label manager of Defected Records, is such an achievement. How do you do that? So let's start from your humble beginnings, because I love them. Where did you start, Al?
We don't have too much time, but let's start at the beginning with me and music. And it essentially was me and my father. I mean, I was brought up in a house filled with music. My father loved music in all its forms and loved playing music and shared it with myself, my sister, my mother. He used to make mixtapes, which is essentially, was so inspiring to me. Just being able, he would put a song after a song, and then he would play it in the car and then overthink it and then reorganize the order. And that makes so much sense. Sequencing a record makes so much sense. Sequencing a mix makes so much sense. Telling a story. And I just really, I was really rubbish at school. I had no concentration span for anything academic. All I wanted to do was play records and play weird and wonderful records and play the music I was into. And unapologetically, that's what I've done for many, many years. But it kind of really started there. And I remember quite clearly going into Florida in Roodepoort in Johannesburg in South Africa. They had a library we used to frequent. And I remember the only book that really interested me was one on DJing. And that was before DJing was DJing. I was so young. It was about being a disc jockey, or being a radio DJ rather.
Wow.
And that was super, super interesting to me. And I've kind of followed that path, but I've really taken the long-ass way about it in comparison to other people. It has really been step by step by step, and really forcing my way into uncomfortable positions, which I've continued to do. And from being in a house full of music, I landed up going to Roodepoort College, which was a college kind of for all the outcasts in Roodepoort. And my wife, to this day, her mother told her, never marry someone from Roodepoort College, or never hook up with someone. And she landed up marrying me. But that was the kind of reputation that we had. And what happened in Roodepoort High School was I learned about DJing, because we used to have 5 days a week, and every single day of the week there would be a different genre of music. and all my mates were DJing. We weren't DJing. We were playing press. We were pressing play on a CDJ and lifting up the fader and letting another track start when another one ended. That was it. That was what we were doing. But it was the beginning of that for me. It was the beginning of trying to curate an hour's worth of music.
Yeah.
And I was the guy that was playing all the weird trip hop, jungle, and hip hop stuff during lunch breaks. I was 17 at the time. 16, 17, I'd probably say, between 15 and 17. And that was the start of me committing to putting time aside to put music into a structure, if you will.
Well, I feel like that's actually really important because your dad was a selector, right?
Yeah.
He's the original selector, and so he sort of gave you that knowledge of really because that is really the key for DJing, right? When I first learned how to DJ, and Brett Jackson was my teacher, he would say to me, the most important thing is the song selection. That is the most important thing. So you're already then, just by playing, that is the essence really of DJing. Is if you're a good curator of sound, you can be an amazing DJ.
100%. It's about picking the right tracks. I think anyone in the world that we live in today can be a DJ. And a lot of people are, but not many people have much depth. And I think people can feel that.
And I also think, Al, so in South Africa is a small country. So, there's a lot of DJs in South Africa. It's, a very popular thing to do. So you have something in your personality, that is you've got a lot of grit, and you have shown that you fought for things, so I love the story about when you first, so in college, I don't know if that's when you started working at the record store, but I love the story about how you started working in a record store, because this is where you set yourself apart from other DJs and other people, because I think people assume that people in your position just got there by luck. So tell how you became.
So the steps were from starting to DJ at Rudaport College and being really naughty and kind of starting my taking lots of drugs and just being like a really irresponsible, naughty kid. My parents and myself decided to go to the UK. Well, they decided to ship into the UK rather, so that I could kind of figure things out. And that's when I started buying records. I started buying music that I wanted to play, because in South Africa, all the record stores, House Africa and all the likes, they only had house music, and I was playing weird music on, Mo Wax and Jazz Fudge and Ninja Tune, and I wanted those records. So I came to Brighton in the UK for a year, and I managed to buy a box of those records, and then came back to South Africa and started DJing at 206. Forced my way into 206, essentially. I had a friend who opened the doors, and we would take all of our equipment there and DJ with our records every single week. Now, while this was happening, I was working at a clothing store called Guess Clothing, which was like the worst thing I could ever do, ever. But I had to have a job I had to have a job, full stop. If I was going to be not going to school or I had to work. So I had this job at Guess Clothing, and all I ever wanted to do was have a job at a record store. Even when I was in Brighton, I tried to get a job at HMV or Virgin, and they would never take me because I had no experience. But I could never get any experience because no one would ever have me. So there was a really big retailer in South Africa called Look and Listen. They were kind of like the top high-end independent CD store for all of us. That's where I met you. And I really needed to get into Look and Listen so that I could start working in a music store. That was kind of like the next step for me. DJing was one thing, but I needed to be in the industry. And there was an opportunity, obviously, starting to DJ at 206, people started to take notice of me, and a friend was like, listen, I work at Look and Listen, maybe I can get you in. And he tried to get me through the door, and there was no positions available except for one position, which was to be a security guard sitting on the second floor of the two-story CD retail store and look down at the other security guards who are stamping receipts at the exit. And that was my entry into retail. And I essentially sat upstairs in the evenings and watched security guards stamp receipts and make sure that there was nothing dodgy going on. Now, what happened was on the weekends, I would take my lunch break and I wouldn't actually go out for lunch. I'd go down onto the floor and I would chat to customers and I'd sell them music. And I ended up selling more Larry Heard CDs than any of the staff there had ever done or had taken any initiative or any experience to go and sell. And I ended up doing that just because that's what I wanted to do. And then they started to take notice. And then I got a job actually working and heading up, I suppose, the dance section back in the day. So now I was starting to balance having a residency at 206 every single Tuesday, which we actually flipped into us just going there and DJing into actually getting a paid gig. And then working at Look and Listen part-time. So now I had two sources of income doing what I wanted to do. But as with me, it's never enough, and I needed to continue the hustle and continue pushing. And what happened was I made relationships with all of the people I was buying that were selling their music to Look and Listen. All the music I was selling, I ended up making friends with the people distributing it in. And I moved on to working at the Cresta branch where I met you, and I was kind of like the head buyer for dance music, and I used to buy for a few stores. And it was cool, but it was never enough. I think that's the one thing with me is like, where is it enough? And
well, can I just stop you there for a second before you carry on telling that? Is the reason why it wasn't enough for you, and this is something that I saw when I first met you in that record shop or that music shop, was when somebody is completely passionate about something, when somebody lives something, it can't be enough. Like, this is you live music, Al, and you always have, and you've always lived the music, that the sounds that you have always sold to people and you've shared with people. You share it not because you wanted to sell CDs. You did it because you genuinely wanted, that is what introduced me to acid jazz, was your passion for it. You weren't trying to sell me CDs. You were like, listen to this, it's amazing. So that's where the difference is, I think. Okay, 100%. You can carry on.
It was always just about sharing, because what I listen to is niche, and what I love is niche. But it's always like trying to, and I suppose also that comes into having the radio show. But it's always about sharing. It's exactly what you're saying. And what happened was there was an opportunity to join one of these distribution companies. And that was the next step for me, out of Look and Listen. Like, where do I go to next? And again, there was a little bit of a conflict, because the guy that wanted to hire me didn't want to burn any bridges with Look and Listen, because they bought a lot of music from him. So I said to him, listen, he kept asking, who's the right person for this job that I have? I was like, I know who the right person is. It's me. He's like, but I don't want to annoy Look and Listen, because if I take you or poach you as one of their staff, then they might stop buying music from me or penalize me in some sort of way. And then it's just not going to work. So I thought about it, and the next day I phoned him and I said, how about I approach Look and Listen and I tell them that it was my idea, not yours? And he said, cool, if you want to do that, let's do it. And I managed to pluck up the courage, and speak to the boss of Look and Listen, Howard Lazarus, I think, at the time. I mean, I was really young at the time. I was in the early 20s. And another big move, it was just terrifying for me to just pick up the phone and be like, listen, this is what I want to do. It was my idea. I'm asking for your advice. What do you think? And he was like, I don't think it's a good idea. And I was like, I appreciate that, but I'm probably going to do it. And I did it. And I left Look and Listen. And I started distributing, or being the sales rep rather, for a distribution company in South Africa that distributed all the music I loved, everything. It was like heaven. And I would drive around. Mostly I did Cape Town, Durban, and Johannesburg. And I would drive with boxes of CDs and records and T-shirts from all the labels that I loved. I mean, from 18th Street Lounge to Ubiquity to Raw Fusion to Compost Records to Groove Attack, which was doing all the US hip hop stuff, the Doom stuff, the Metal Finger stuff, like everything I was into, from the hip hop to the new jazz to the house we were doing. It was a really, really great start for me to almost learn the industry a bit. And what happened with that was I started going overseas quite often. I go to Popcom in Berlin and go to Midam in France and start doing distribution deals with a lot of labels that needed presence in South Africa. And while this was going on, I attracted the attention of Harel Salko, who is the owner of Soul Candy Records. Soul Candy Records, one of the biggest house labels on the continent of Africa, was Sugar Tracks. Harel Salko bought the company. It became a very compilation-driven business plus a record store. Just like Ministry of Sound, just like Defected. And I never really liked the records they were putting out. They never spoke to me, but Harel really liked me. I was selling him records and I would bump into him on these international trips, and he was always trying to find a way to get me to work for him. And I was just like, dude, you don't have the music that I'm into. It's that simple. For me, I'm always into the music. And he was like, well, we'll find the music. And there came a point where Harel made me an offer alongside one of my close friends, Sergio, who partnered with him. And I felt like it was the next step. And again, another big kind of leap of faith. I took the job offer and left Coast Music and this life of distributing all this cool music to become another sales rep for a record label. It was now a record label rather than a distribution company. And Soul Candy were essentially doing all of these compilations. I was a sales manager and I had a team behind me, but I was still on the road selling all of this music that I liked. I didn't really love. I wasn't DJing it, but I was good at it. We had a good working relationship that carried on for a while. And I was starting to get interested in the record label side of things and knew nothing, like absolutely nothing. I knew that there were record labels. I didn't understand how you license something, what a 360 deal was. I didn't understand any of that. And what happened was I was working alongside Ricardo and Brett Jackson, who you mentioned earlier, who was your mentor. And Brett was the guy. Brett was like the perfect person to be the label manager for Soul Candy Records. He was signing records, he was putting together compilations, he was DJing the music. He understood the space and he was house music. And unfortunately, he passed away from cancer while I was working alongside him or working with him on the sales side. And no one knew what was going to happen next. No one knew who the next person to run Soul Candy was going to be. And I never for a second thought it would be me, but Soul Candy owner Harel and Sergio approached me and were like, what do you think of being the new label manager for Soul Candy? And I was like, I don't know this music. I don't know the business. They like how I work. They like me. If there's any way for me to step into this world, now's the time.
Yeah.
And I decided to take another big step, and I did, and it was terrifying at first. I mean, I was having meetings with Euphonic and DJ Fresh and Ganyani and all these people who I knew were big deals in this space in South Africa. And when I say big deals, these guys, they have millions of followers and they were selling hundreds and thousands of CDs. And now I was the central point of all of these compilations, or all of these artist projects. And it was daunting. It was crazy. And I didn't really feel very supported, but I was really thrown into the deep end. And I learned the business. I was forced to learn the business. I was forced to be put into a very uncomfortable situation that I wanted to be in. Essentially, I wanted to learn the game. And I learned. And 3.5 years working at Soul Candy and understanding the business and creating a really good network in South Africa, the business started to lose money because physical was in a decline. Digital was taking off. We had too many staff to support. And essentially, I was made redundant or retrenched if you're living in South Africa. And I just signed our bond our mortgage for a new property that we had just got. I'd been married to my wife for 3.5 years, and as soon as I got redundant and signed a deal to our house, got news that I was going to be a father, and it was all a bit much. It was a bit fucking mad, to be honest. And I knew what I wanted to do, and I always knew that I was going to run my own record label, putting out the music that I love. Because at Soul Candy, it was a learning platform for me. It was definitely like a way to learn the business, but I wasn't putting out records I was like extremely passionate about. I think in my in the amount of years that I was there, probably, I would say like the things that I worked on that have become really big, and because of my influence and my A&R, would be Julian Gomes, without a doubt. I picked up Love Song 28 in a room full of people that didn't think it was good enough. I signed the first OK Mellon Cool Cat record and put him onto a lot of things. Teleman, who's a really big R&B artist in South Africa, I was a part of. Musart, and the list goes on. There was at least 5 or 6 artists that I really feel are big in the space now that I was behind back in the day. So there was definitely some success, but I didn't really feel like the label was mine, or I had carte blanche to release what I wanted. So when I left Soul Candy, or when I got retrenched, I was like, okay, it's time to open up a record label. And Julian and I were quite close. And he always said to me, if you ever leave Soul Candy, we need to open up a record label. So I called him up and I was like, Julian, I've been retrenched. Let's do this. And yeah, exactly. And we opened up Stay True Sounds, which is now, it'll be 10 years next year.
Holy moly.
Yeah, crazy. And I went on this, I mean, I don't know what it was like being my wife, Lauren, because like we got a new child on the way. I'm throwing money into a record label that no one has any real idea of how big or small this is going to be. And then I got a phone call from 5FM, which is a South African national broadcaster. They were also doing a bit of a shuffle at the time. And everyone that I knew that was in the more commercial dance space was really excited about these doors that were opening and these opportunities that were possible for any DJ to have their own radio show. I never once in my life thought that I was going to be a candidate. And I was literally sitting,
I remember you contacting me and telling me that this was happening. It was so funny because 5FM needed you, right? 5FM needed to take a chance on somebody like you. It was, I think, a step in a new direction for 5FM.
I was a big gambler. Yeah, I was a proper gambler. They were very clear about that, and they'd done so many things by the book, and done chart shows and mix shows, but there was never a specialist show. I think there were specialist shows, but there was nothing like what I had to offer. I don't think they even knew what I had to offer. I knew in my head what I was going to do.
Doing things like deep house, tech house, or the like the minimal. Like, yes, there was space for that, but the sound that you brought in was very, very unique to 5FM. It wasn't like there was a few of us DJs on 5 who would play similar stuff, like the late night dance music shows. That's what we'd play, like the similar things a lot of the times. But your sound was very unique, I feel.
Totally. I think I shocked a lot of people, a lot of listeners for the first 2 or 3 years, without a doubt. And I always wanted to do that. I always wanted to stay true, as cliched as it sounds. Like I always just wanted to represent me, as brave as I need to be. I need to put on what really connects with me and my soul and fulfills me. And they told me when they called me up to do the show, they were like, you are kind of going to be a bit of a risk for us, but we're willing to take the chance. And I was like, the only way I'm going to do this is if I can do it my way. And they were like, well, that's why we want you. So I was like, okay, fuck, thank God. And I did.
But isn't this interesting, Al? Okay, so like I love looking at the deeper things in life. I love looking at why things happen in life. So you all the steps that you've taken, like, you have been in the right direction. And when you went to Soul Candy, even though the music wasn't the thing, like the music itself wasn't exactly your style of music, it was an important stepping stone because you learned so much about the industry and about record labels. And if you didn't have that, you probably wouldn't have known how to open Stay True Sounds, like how to launch.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you get retrenched. And it's almost like, things in life happen for specific reasons. Like if you had not been retrenched, you would have stayed at Soul Candy. There wouldn't have been a reason for you. And then if with 5FM, when 5FM came along, if you had not stuck to your guns, if you had not like stayed true, which is the perfect name for your record label, if you'd not done that, there wouldn't have been that tie in, there wouldn't have been, like, everything happens for a reason. You had to be so brave and so true to you to do that for 5FM, because 5FM is like the national broadcaster. You don't say, like,
the most commercial radio station.
Yes.
Ever. Taking someone that plays the weirdest shit. And I'm happy to say it is. I mean, if you compare it to what gets played, it's very foreign. But it was a breath of fresh air for people. And I created a culture. And, I listened to radio. I listened to UK radio for many, many years. And I understood what a specialist show needed to sound like. I understood that you needed to play shit way before anyone else. You almost needed to break something. And I understood that you needed to tell stories before records and break them. You needed to break artists. You need to showcase people and create culture. And fortunately, I took that mentality and ran with the show for 6-7 years. It won best dance radio show, like 4 years in, and it was like a cult, like, following. Even to this day, people, they message me and they're like, when is Selective Styles? We miss Selective Styles. Like, it was a really, really, really big moment. It was a beautiful thing to have. It felt like you had the whole of South Africa on a Sunday evening, like, alongside you. I would go in studio, dim the lights, get into my bubble, get onto Twitter, and I would tweet each song as it plays. And 95% of the time, the music I was playing hadn't been released yet. So I was discovering music and showcasing it with the country. And as I was playing the records, the country would retweet and really get involved with the songs that they liked. And you could tell what was going to do well and what wasn't. And I think a lot of people, excluding myself, a lot of people and artists that are actually doing really big things at the moment benefited from Selective Styles. FKA Mash, without a doubt. I mean, I could tell you some of the things that he's doing right now that are just insane. Some of the people he's working with, some of the people he's going to be opening for overseas. And I signed his first record and I had him on the show numerous times because I loved his music. Dawson, CO, so many people I had on that show. There was just, it's difficult to break down, But it was a beautiful place for people to be introduced to records. And it really did happen, like, parallel Stay True Sounds opening as a record label and Selective Styles at the same time. So it really was this way to kind of like showcase and release music. And it was a beautiful time. And gone.
I also I think that, you built such a cult following and such a beautiful community there because, people can smell bullshit a mile away.
Yeah.
And your show is very authentic. Like you, because you were like so passionate about the music that you were playing and releasing to people and releasing on the air, and so like such a supporter of these new producers and these new musicians, people could feel that authenticity. They could feel that something special was happening because you weren't doing it because, like, once again, you didn't do this show because you wanted to become a popular radio DJ. Like, that was not the reason you did the show. You did the show because you wanted to share, once again, music that you love with other people. And that is where that connection came in. And I think that's so beautiful. And it's an important thing for people to know. Like, that's why, you're an unreasonable human. Like you did something that most people wouldn't have done. They would have like rather played the music that they know is popular because that's going to get more likes and people are going to make, you're going to get popular in, quotation marks, but you didn't do it that way. You were unreasonable and you were authentic and you were like, I'm going to show the music that I believe in. And I don't know, I believe in it. It might be a flop, it might not, but it wasn't. Like, because you created community, right?
Yeah.
Of like-minded people.
Yeah, you got to back yourself. You got to create. If you're going to get into something that is very unique and different, you have to back yourself. I mean, it was me. You know me. Even, I mean, you put my first compilation together, Sala de Mundo. It was like so unconventional to any other mix CD that had ever been put out, and it got like some really great reviews. And then my head started popping up a little bit here and there, and I think that's it. It's just being like headstrong about what you believe in, to the point that you're going to back it on national radio in front of 100, 200, 300,000 people and back announce it and cross your fingers and hope for the best. And that's generally what's happened in my life. It's just been that whole like, fucking hell, what am I doing? Close my eyes. I know this is the right thing to do. And I know it's going to be hard. I remember my first link on radio. I was just like an absolute wreck. And as you should be, because you care, right?
Yeah.
And and it just got better and better and better. But so
would you say, when you started on radio, would you say, and I probably know your answer, but I love people to know this, because I think people think that when you get a radio show, you know what you're doing. And
I had no clue. I couldn't. I had a desk driver, right? So that's someone that comes in and helps you, like, figure out the board while you're on radio. And essentially, you should be in a studio by yourself. But I hung onto my desk driver for so long after like the date they were supposed to go, because I just couldn't like manage to think how it would be being by myself.
Yeah.
But I did it. I did
know.
it. And then it got to the point where I could do it a lot. And I got to the point of going there confidently and have like a band in front of you, and you know what's going on, what buttons to press, and how to conduct an interview. But again, it's just all of these, like, really stepping out of your comfort zone and being really uncomfortable for progress and for the story to continue. There's no way, hands down, and this isn't, I suppose, yeah, it is, but it's the truth. Like, there's no way a lot of people in South Africa and starting to go international would know about the artists that are backed without Selective Styles or State Tree Sounds. There's no way. And sometimes I need to step out of everything I'm in, because I'm in a lot in my head all the time. That's how things work. I'm constantly trying to hustle things together and get this guy there and work on this and do this. And that's just me and my ADHD. But sometimes you need to step out of everything and actually look at what you've done and be like, okay, I actually have this together. Like, I can do this.
Yeah.
And
Al, because you're coming from a place of heart. You, like, I thought about this the other day. I thought about, like, why is it that in some situations you get like completely burnt out and so stressed out, and then in other situations you're working so hard and you get energy from that? And I think it's because when you're doing something that's from the heart, and when you're doing something that is your purpose, in a way, your calling, you find the energy, you just keep going, because you don't want to, it's a purpose. It's like your vocation, I guess. Like, this is your vocation. It's so interesting. And when you see the rewards, like when you see these incredible artists, I mean, the people that you have, I guess, launched into the world, who are now doing such amazing things, that keeps you going, right? Like, why would you want to stop? Why would you want to stop doing this?
I don't even feel like I got to the surface of what I need to do. And I could just see it in front of me. I can see where these things are going to land. And I can see now that I have like the buy-in of Defected. And today, in fact, we couldn't have done an interview at a better time, as like today was my first ever release or A&R record, as Alan Nickel A&R Defected release. I have Atmos Black, who's a 23-year-old South African producer from Soweto, who remixed The Cure and the Cause, and that's like an official release, and it got put out today, and it's getting a lot of attention. I was like, okay, well, like, yeah, it's happened, and that happened today, and I already have like the next couple that are coming on Defected, but it's taken time. It's taken time to get these things to happen, and it's taken time. Yeah, oh, you got to hear this remix.
My first albums. It was one of my first records that I ever bought.
So you got to check out. You got to check out the Atmos Black remix. It's just.
I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait. Yeah. Amazing, Alan. It's so cool. I want to know. It's just so great to speak to somebody like you who's had such a just such an incredible career, and you're still in it. You're still like, but what do you think the qualities that you have? What qualities do you have that you feel are the qualities necessary to get you to where you are? Like, come from, in most careers, you can just sort of work your way up in a quite a logical, chronological sort of way. You study something, you go into it, you work your way from being a junior to a senior, whatever. But the entertainment industry is very fucking different. The DJing industry is so different. The radio industry, I mean, it's cutthroat, and it's like, yes, it's got to do with luck, it's got to do with timing and stuff, but I also feel that there's got to be qualities in a human that gets you through, like gets you to where you are. And what do you think those qualities are that you have, or that a person should have in the entertainment industry to, first of all, be successful, but also stay true to who they are, not get overdriven by their ego, because we know how the entertainment industry is. What do you think those qualities are?
I think my story and who I am is very, very different to other DJs and radio presenters, to be honest. And this isn't like, everyone's got their story and their purpose, right? I just think mine is quite different. Like I'm very attuned to being like a vessel, or like I'm the guy that's going to put you onto the next thing, or put you onto the next producer. That's always been my thing that I aspire to be, and I know I'm good at it. Some things take longer than most, but I'm that guy for lack of a better term, like the South African underground. Mm-hmm. Now other guys, all they want to do is DJ and play popular tracks. That works for them, and other people, they just want to be on radio and do the same. Whereas I feel like mine is a lot deeper and more personal. How I get there and what makes me different, I just think, like, I'm so stubborn. Like, I know what I want, and I'm quite competitive, even with myself. And I've learned how to manage that, and I've learned how to work with a team, because now, like, I manage 6 or 7 A&R managers and juniors at Defected, and we all listen to different music, and we all have different labels that we need to contribute to, and I need to find the balance of managing that. But I think more than anything, it's about, for me, the wins are through other people. It's exactly like what you were saying earlier. So to have like CO be on Times Square's wall, New York City, on a record that I put out and helped A&R and put together and put out, and there she is, Spotify, like Artist of the Month. I forget what the campaign was. Like, that's a win for me. I'm like, fucking hell, I did that. And these are the things that I continue to enjoy and continue to want to like bring to this world. There's so much talent in South Africa, and I'm like very, very connected to what's going on in the underground scene. And if there's going to be one person on the planet that's going to crack it overseas or open the doors, it's going to be me. And I always want to be that guy. And I was with Shimza yesterday, who's, if you don't know Shimza, he's like a very, very big DJ in South Africa, like over 1 million followers. He has his own events. He's got a show in London tonight. And we were just chatting, and he was just like, it's so good that I'm here because he feels like South Africa is represented. And I just want to be that. I want to be that guy that connects 23-year-old Atmos Black to the cure and the cause and gets released on Defected. I want to be that guy that does a lot of these similar type of things moving forward. And I am that guy, but I just want to see it expand to a point where the artists that I represent or the music that I fuck with starts to really get the attention that it deserves on a global level. So that's what drives me. That's essentially, yeah, I think it's just different people are into it for different things. For me, there's always like, I need to push more of what I'm doing. I'm nowhere near done with what I need to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what keeps me going. That's what wakes me up in the morning. And I have a very busy brain, and I have a lot of things on the go all the time. And I also think that had a lot to do with why I am where I am and what I'm doing. You know, I never once in my life ever thought that I would be at Defected, working at Defected. But now I'm the director of A&R for Defected. It's mad. It really is. But I know through this, I'm going to achieve what I need to achieve and everything that we just spoke about.
Yeah,
So,
and and it must be so nice because now you're in a position that you can affect such change for people like Sia in South Africa. Like, you can take these people and you actually can do it. You're in that position. You've built yourself up to a point where now you're of use. Now you're like, oh yeah, now it's like I have a say here.
yeah.
And that's beautiful because we have got such incredible talent in South Africa. I mean, hello, we just won a Grammy. That's amazing. And, like Black Coffee's also won a Grammy. I mean, it's so great. And now you can take these people. I love it. I love that you're doing that. And I love that you're keeping your connection to South Africa, that you've brought Stay True Sounds to an international market. Now, I know you were in last week. Where did you play? You were in the
St. Lucia, yeah. I did a Stay True Sounds event in St. Lucia. Stay True Sounds, I mean, obviously, that's another, just my passion. And it is very, very South African heavy. And we are taking, I mean, it feels like, just to step back a bit. So I'll be writing Stay True Sounds, writing Selective Styles, and did like a European tour over 6 weeks at the end of COVID. Bumped into Simon Dunmore, who I knew from Soul Candy. And Simon took a real liking to me, even though we had history. And I did ask him if I could have a job at Defected when I got retrenched at Soul Candy many, many years before this. And he just took this real liking to my hustle and everything. And he just kept talking to me and kept trying to figure out, me and what my aspirations for the label are. And, for me, the big thing has always been to push Stay True Sounds out of South Africa. And then the discussions between Simon, who was the owner of Defected, started off with like, let's do a distribution deal with Stay True Sounds. And then I was like, I know Simon, this is not going to be distro. He's going to want to buy in, which essentially he offered. And then we went down that road. And while that was going on, he asked me if I'd like to join Defected. And I was like, fuck, dude, this is like not something I had in mind because, I'm kind of like at the peak in South Africa. My DJ career is really like doing well. I got a very well-established record label. I got a great award-winning radio show. And again, I was like, I have to take this big leap. I have to immigrate. I have to bring my wife and my son to the UK, and I have to take these next steps, which I've done. And I've said this, I've been here for a year now, and immigration is no joke, as you know. It's a big, big, big change. And I'm still here, and it's I'm not going to lie, it's been hard. But after a year of putting my head down and doing what I needed to do, and after taking my boss, Wes, Simon left the business as I got here, and Wes is the CEO. He committed to coming to South Africa with me in November last year, and I took him on like a 5-day trip of it was such an important trip for so many reasons. But he finally got to see my world, and he finally got to experience what house music is like for us in South Africa. And essentially that's opened up the doors to everything that I'm doing at the moment. Before, I think everyone was really like not really on the same page. You never really are when it comes to South African house music. You need to experience that shit.
I was going to say, until you go to South Africa and you experience South African house music, you have no, like, it is like a religion.
Yeah, it's next level. So, Wes, fortunately, I could show him that. We threw some parties. I took him everywhere. We went to like see, we went to Conquer in Soweto, went to Shims's place in Tembisa. We were in Lange in Cape Town. We did met everyone from Sunal Musician to Black Coffee to, like Sio, my whole camp, China Chameleon, FKA Mash. And he just, for the first time, was like, okay, shit, I get it. And now he's really committed to making sure that South African house music doesn't get forgotten, or even more so, that doesn't get exploited. Like the rest of the genres have, genres in dance music throughout the years. And I'm a real kind of anchor in all of that moving forward. And we've got a lot of exciting things happening.
Yeah, so like you're sort of like the gatekeeper. You can keep the integrity of this, which is so big and it's so important, right? Because I look at like when I think about like genres like Amapiano, and I think about how I remember when I was DJing in Durban and going with the guys like Kid Fonque and all of them to go DJ in Durban. And I remember the Durban producers, that Durban house sound, that was the start of Amapiano. Like this was like 16 years ago. This is a long time ago. And I just think like the reason why it became what it did was because it kept its integrity. But in order to do that, you have to have people holding the integrity. But as soon as things go international, a lot of the times it becomes diluted. And you are that like the sort of like I guess the quality controller. You're going to be the one who's going to make sure that sound, when people hear an international production that is like a collaboration, that sound is still in there, that like that unique South African sound is really in there, which is pretty rad, Al. It's such a great place to be.
It's mad. I mean, I had to let go of a lot of things that I really love to be here, but I can see without a doubt that me being in this position and me being connected still to so much that's going on in South Africa, I can see what's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years. I can see, we're going to look back and see her as going to be the star that we all knew she was going to be, and it's going to be international, and we're going to have bigger, more South African presence on the roster. And, I've got a label that's starting on the 23rd of Feb that we've pretty much put together, an Afro house label that's coming through Defected, and we have like 5 or 6 releases in the bag from big players across the world. And I'm making it happen. I'm making it happen from this side. I'm bringing my agenda and bringing my flavor to Defected. So yeah, I don't want to ever downplay this, but like this shit, most of it has been hard, but the wins are insane. And that's why we keep doing it, because like I've got work to do, and I've got people to represent, and I've got music to put out and to showcase. And I'm in the rain in -5 degrees in London, but I know what purpose it serves.
I love that. I think we're going to finish off there. I want to finish off with my unreasonable human questions, but I just want to say that the things that I've noticed with you and that I love about your, I guess your journey, let's call it a journey out. But like, so you got this grit, the grit that like, I think every South African has, the grit to keep going. You, like you say, are stubborn. When I think, I don't think of stubborn, I think of grit. I think of like when you have grit, you're also stubborn because you know what you want and you don't stop. You don't step back until you've got it. You have this, I don't know what the word is, the quality, but you want to share your passion. You want to share what you love. And by doing that, you immediately promote other people. You immediately bring out the best in other people, and that's a really amazing quality to have. And yeah, you're driven. So I feel like all of those qualities, and then you're authentic. You've stayed true. You've stayed true to your sound. So those are all the things that I've seen, and I just and I think that it's important for people to know that, like, your journey hasn't been about luck. Your journey has been about, like, staying true to who you are and taking risks, like being brave, but keeping on no matter what, like taking the risks and going into the places that you can't see, like going into the unknown and doing it with a sense of courage, which is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's finish off with my 3 unreasonable questions. Alan, what's
Yeah.
the most unreasonable gig you've ever had? Do that.
Oh, fuck. Hmm. Oh gosh, I remember now. I think I got booked to play Wits. Wits is a university in Johannesburg for like, it was like the end of year gig, and there were no CDJs in sight. It was, you only had to play records. And I got a half an hour slot, and it was like, I knew the expectation. It was like commercial songs. And my like capacity for commercial songs on vinyl were quite limited, but I could play some deep house cuts that were pretty, familiar in a South African context. But I only had 30 minutes worth. And I played the 30 minutes, and that's all I packed. And the act after me was late. So I started playing B-sides. I started flipping the records over to play the B-sides. And I remember clearly people in the crowd, like, literally telling me they want the next DJ. You know what I mean? Like, their hands in the air. I don't know how you say that, but they're just like, next DJ, next, rotate, next DJ. That was a horrible moment, because it was like 15 minutes and I was just playing. I couldn't play the same tracks. I was playing shit I didn't even like just because I didn't have that many records. That was a big
Smart that you played the B-sides, yo. I mean, I think the first gig I ever played was also, I had 30 minutes worth, and that was it of records. I didn't think to play the B-sides. I was like, I'm out of here. I'm finished. That's all I got.
Fortunately, you could. They were like, you have to stay until the next act gets here. It's like, oh God. Essay.
Good. Okay. My next unreasonable question is, what scares you, Al?
I think what scares me is just not being able to do what I do, to be honest. I think I'm in a very sweet spot right now. And it does really feel like quite the privilege to be at Defected and still like really pushing my agenda like I do. The fear that I have that it might one day disappear, because of, it's a numbers game when you look at the music industry. And, if you're not getting the numbers, what's the point for most of the majors? But I've never really played in that space. So I suppose that is the fear. But again, it is a fear, but there's a big but. I always seem to just keep going. So look, I'm going to continue anyway. I'm just I'm in a very sweet spot. I really would love to see the music that I push so hard get to the levels that it needs to sustain itself as a proper business, just like all the other big players have. And yeah, I believe it will. It's time. Just patience and time. It's time.
Time. Okay, my final question is, what is your definition of an unreasonable human?
To be stubborn, to have vision, uncompromising vision, passion, and to trust your gut. Look, I mean, it's such a tricky one because some of the situations that I put myself in, really my gut was saying no. Like, what the fuck are you doing? And I think it's understanding when to trust your gut on things that aren't good for you and when to ignore your gut when you know that the next step's going to be like pretty difficult, but it's going to work out anyway.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. It's so true. Yes.
Yeah.
Al, thank you. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm so glad we re-recorded Now
Likewise.
we're
The timing is spot on.
we're gonna have to do this like once a year just to see where you're going next.
Amazing. I'm down.
Okay. All
We have
right.
a good recording. Thank you so much, Erica.
Thank you, Al. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Unreasonable Humans. Thanks so much for joining me. Please follow the show wherever you listen to your podcasts, and remember that a great rating goes a very long way to support the show. Until the next one, bye.